The Chicago 2024 race breakdown starts now and goes on for probably 30 or 40 minutes. As you can see on this video, it's a long one, and it's the video I always love to make after a race, and what it seems like a lot of you guys like to watch and listen to. Appreciate that. If you're on the treadmill right now, it's a great treadmill video. Maybe just pause it and save it for when you have a treadmill workout, because I'll go over all of my nutrition, pacing strategy, how the day went, all the variables, feelings, emotions, all that good stuff. So we'll just dive right in. I wanted to, this race, include a carb load that was really similar, if not more than what I did in Boston. And I was going off of that 45 grams of carbs per pound of body weight. For me, that equated to around 800 or above 800 grams per day in the 2 days leading up to Sunday. And I got a little bit of FOMO because I started seeing people carb load on Thursday as well. So I kind of upped it that day, and it ended up being 523 on Thursday, 807 on Friday, and 822 on Saturday. And with all the footage we have, I'll just go ahead and share all the things that I did eat, maybe with a carb loading ticker at the bottom.
Carb started. Carb started. Carb load started. Go bar one.
I have a 4-mile run, and typically I wouldn't bring anything on a 4-mile run, maybe just electrolytes or something silly to really bring anything. But since I am carb loading, I'm gonna do 2 scoops of UNM in here. I'm gonna bring 14 ounces of it in the salt flask, drink it while I'm running, and then finish the rest when I get back, just to get more liquid calories in. 14 ounces, there was 20 in here to start. And with carb mix, these things just look gross after a while. It's like fully yellow. This is the one I'll be throwing away in Chicago on the course. There we go, 14 ounces here. 6 ounces left in here. Now, I have a lot of friends that talk about carb loading being really hard. And it is, it's not easy to do. It's uncomfortable. Trying to do 600 plus grams of carbohydrates in a day is not comfortable. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and the more you can get liquid carbs. It's a cheat code, making it easier, because eating a million bagels is not as easy as drinking them. Not drinking bagels, but you know what I mean. So I've done about like 7 or 8 times now carb loading that hard, and to me it just gets easier and easier every time, especially when I go this route and I don't have to eat 6 or 7 bagels on a day. Get ready to go. Just crush an apple. Almost done with the whole thing of orange juice. I'm gonna grab a bottle of apple juice and a bagel, head to the studio. Do a Gojo right now too. On my way to the studio, bagel, cream cheese. Apple juice. All right, I just ate my chicken shawarma bowl from Trader Joe's, typical lunch that I do. And I'm about halfway through the apple juice now. I'll probably rip another bagel and a Go bar in the car maybe, and then start counting my totals, because I think I'm close to 600 at this point, which is crazy. It's only 2:45, so check back in later. Go bar. I don't know if I'm gonna be hungry for dinner. What are you gonna get at dinner? Where are we going? Club Lucky, Italian.
Italian? Probably a chicken Alfredo.
Oh, I might do that.
It's very good.
Fettuccine Alfredo?
Yeah.
Good morning. Saturday morning. More orange juice. $24. Go bar. Another 2 scoops of chewing gum sport. Just sipping on orange juice all morning. Apple. And then Go bar. Bagel.
This is cool.
So that's our card game right there, Splendor. Me and the boys rip that all the time.
What is that?
Cyrus destroys Theo.
What's Splendor?
It's like a coins, and use the coins to buy gems, and then you need it.
Doesn't look like it was that great. Oh, check it out. Oh, nice.
So obviously consisted of a lot of simple carbs and a lot of juice. And the juice is, I mean, I think it's contested, at least anecdotally I've found with people sending me DMs and whatnot. With it makes me like super gassy, and Cyrus can attest to that, that it does that. But it could have been the reason why my stomach felt off during the race, and I'm definitely going to be evaluating that moving forward. Because really the conclusion I'm coming to with this race is that the carb load was probably a bit too much. Like reading recent studies and all that with the 4 to 5, even coach post race told me maybe we should stick to like 3 to 4 grams per pound. Maybe do make it a little less aggressive. And I think maybe relying more on solid carbs, even though that'll feel more uncomfortable, instead of drinking all of them, because I did 2.5 gallons a day, 1 of orange juice, 1 of apple juice. So that could have been the reason why I was feeling that way. But it was, I think, as I'll get into, also just kind of how I was feeling that morning and why I was feeling so full. But I'm pretty sure I was feeling so full on race morning because I packed it in with pasta way too late. I should have eaten that dinner much earlier, because it wasn't until past 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30. So lessons learned, really good stuff. And the last thing I want this video to be is just a list of excuses. And I think this balance is really interesting because, well, first off, making your marathon goals public online didn't really bother me at first. And now I'm starting to realize, as I run faster times and there's more eyeballs on the races that I do, I'm starting to realize that people really want to label the variables and, what really happened as excuses because you didn't make your goal or, whatever. And I can totally get wrapped up in some of that online stuff with what people say because I'm human. But on the other hand, like, I don't care at all. Like, I truly don't. And part of my reflection in this as well is that I feel like, don't get me wrong, so proud of the work Cyrus and I put together, mostly Cyrus on the artistic front, on this series. But it's definitely getting a bit dramatic. I'm recognizing that. Like, it doesn't need to be that dramatic. Like, it's fun. Like, I love making it dramatic and fun because it's just entertainment. Like, I don't, it's like a TV show or whatever. And is that narcissistic because it's me and I'm putting it out there? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I fully recognize that. And it's silly and it's cringy sometimes. Like, I see it, I know it. But sometimes it's fun to be cringy. Like, I'm just gonna put that out there too. Like, if it's fun to make and fun to do and people enjoy watching it, that's okay as well. But how I'm feeling right now is like, moving forward, I kind of just want some of this stuff to be more no nonsense. Like, this is how I feel. This is what it was. These are the variables. Sure, they might be excuses. They might not be excuses. It is what it is. So really my hope in this is that I want to share all the variables that were the reality that day and how they probably did affect my performance. And all of it is a learning lesson for myself and hopefully for you guys as well. And it's starting to make me realize that these time goals, like maybe I don't do just one specific time goal in these training blocks, but because like the athletes I've been coaching, every single race plan, I've been doing a window of time and being happy with this window of time, not necessarily doing an A goal and a set B goal, but framing it in a way where it's, if I land in this zone, which is a much more realistic way to think about marathoning. If I land in this zone, I'm going to be stoked, and that could be like a 4 to 5 minute zone. Maybe that's not as specific enough for your goal. I would probably want that zone to be more of like a 2-minute zone, but I don't know. I've just been reflecting on that. Maybe that would be a better way to approach how we think about our marathon goals instead of just being like sub time. It's got to be under this time, because as you know, these variables that we cannot control on race day, whether it be weather, temperature related, humidity related, wind related, like your carb load, all the nutrition, there's all these different factors that could completely change something in the scope of 2 to 5 minutes that are totally out of your control. And we're so married to this time, and it can seem so silly. Now, yeah, the criticism might be, well, why did you make a whole YouTube video or series about a time goal? That's a great question. I don't know. Maybe I need to reevaluate that, because so much of my thoughts leading up to this race were, I'm going to be so pissed if I run over 2:32. And this happens so often. Like whenever I don't reach a time like that, I find myself on the other side of the finish line, just so happy and not angry at all. And pre-race, I feel like I'm going to be so angry if I don't meet that goal. And then I'm not, because of the work I put in the block and in that race. And I'll get to more of that in a bit. But anyway, I'll get off that soapbox of all those feelings. Let me know if you relate to any of that, because I know we all go through it with our own time goals. And I'm no different than anybody else in that regard. Like it's a struggle to draw this very specific one line in the sand and be like, well, it was a success if you did that or didn't. So anyway, the race morning, I woke up at 3:15. Naturally, I actually set my alarm for 4. And so I woke up at 3:15. I thought, maybe I just lay in bed for a bit longer, see if I fall back asleep. But I was wired, because I fell asleep around 9:15. So I hit almost exactly 6 hours of sleep. And so when I woke up at 3:15, I was just too excited. I was like, you know what? It'd be great if I just got up and showered and just got the stuff rolling sooner, because I don't think another 30 minutes is really going to do anything at all. So got in the shower and showered I was done with my shower before 4 a.m. So I started my coffee, started my breakfast, and my breakfast consisted of bagel with strawberry jam and a BPN Go bar. And then I started prepping my 2 scoops of G1M Sport, which 2 scoops is 40 grams of carbs and over 700 grams of sodium. And then sipped on water as well with that coffee. And as I mentioned before, it might have been because I had so much pasta so late the night before, I may have overdone it. And because of that, in the morning, I just didn't feel great. And I felt full. And feeling full like that is not great when you're already feeling nauseous like I do on race morning. Trying to force down food when you don't feel like you can force it down is not the best feeling. And then driving to the race, I felt really full as well. So that was just kind of brutal. But I got it down. I got both slices of the bagel down. I got the Go bar down and was good, relatively. And so we left for the city at 5:20ish. It was about a 25-minute drive to get down to the parking garage that I reserved on Spot Hero. There's a bit of a kerfuffle to get in there. There was a line. It was kind of the first signs of seeing that there were more people at Chicago this year. And it felt like the parking garage hack was more of a popular thing, because in years past, I was just like, I would drive up 1 or 2 floors and park there, and I had to drive up 6 floors to get to the top. So that was making me feel a little uneasy, but still had plenty of time. And then we walked over to Race Village, got through security super fast at the Jackson entrance right by the Art Institute. It was the fastest I've ever gone through security. And went over to Buckingham Fountain to hang out with all the Life in Stride boys in that crew. It ended up being a group of maybe like 10 people. And yeah, we pretty quickly dropped our bags there. I grabbed my phone and actually wanted to race with my phone the entire time. I trained with it. I've ditched it in the past and not wanted to carry that extra weight, but it was like, I'm not going to notice it. I never notice it when I'm training, so I'm just going to bring it because I wanted to get some footage on the course with the phone. So I might do that from now on. It's easier to carry than a GoPro or something else, an Insta360 or anything like that. But was really happy that I got some coverage with this at the start line and a couple moments in the race as well. And we headed over to like the A-B corral gate, which is the first gate before you enter into the actual corral. So it's one of two steps. And as soon as we got in there, you pass by the American Development Tent and the Elites. So you see them warming up. It's fun. We walked over, and again, the next realization of realizing how many people there were this time. That actually happened before we even entered that gate. We saw the porta potty line, stood in it for a bit, and we're like, let's try the porta potties on the inside of the corral entrance. So we went in there and then realized very quickly those porta potties were completely slammed, and it felt like they just did not have enough porta potties, which was kind of concerning because then I said in the race video, like, you can imagine what happened next. Either chaos internally or externally within the group or without the group. No one's going to name names or reveal anything that happened after that point, but it was chaotic. Let's just put it that way. And I didn't need to go anymore, thankfully. So that was great. I did my typical like go over an undisclosed area as many other people were doing. And the refrain in that time was everyone being like, respect. Like no one was judging anyone. And I think that's just kind of how it goes in Start Village. People were saying that about Berlin too, like in the forested area. People were just running in. That happened at Boston as well. We got off the bus and just sprinted in the woods. Marathoning, the best. So because of that, yeah, we were waiting in a porta potty line, and then we're like, this is not, there were 100 people in front of us and we needed to be in the corral in like 25 minutes. So yeah, we did our business elsewhere and got in the corral about 7:05, I want to say, which was 25 minutes before gun. Felt great to get in then. I hate getting in the corral last minute because there's a pinch point and it starts getting backed up, and everyone starts getting panicked because everyone has to show their bib to get in, and that makes it slow. And since there's a pinch point, there's hundreds of people trying to get into one small area, moving slowly through to show their bib. So the people in the back of that group sometimes get locked out of the corral. So the last thing you want to do at Chicago, especially, or any major marathon with this many runners, especially because there are so many runners. So I definitely recommend getting in there at a reasonable time, which we did. Said hi to some friends, and then did my typical just kind of running around in circles, as a lot of people do in a corral, just to kind of get things loose and warm. And took my first caffeinated Go gel right before we jumped in. So about exactly 30 minutes before race, like I said I would. And yeah, it was really chill. Like I think the calmest I've ever felt before a marathon here. I wasn't allowing myself to get crazy hyped up, kind of like I did last year. That was super fun, but I wanted to keep it a little bit more reserved this year, try to keep the heart rate down a little bit more. And in this moment, they had this really special time where they did a memorial and a moment of silence for Kelvin Kiptum. And yeah, it was just really profound because especially from my experience with last year, I saw him right before the race and was able to cheer him on right before he ran the world record with that group of people around me. And yeah, it was just really sobering to experience that just a year later, knowing that he's no longer with us. And yeah, it's just those moments, whether it be in this sport or anywhere else, where you're just like, yeah, none of this is guaranteed. And we're extremely fortunate to be able to toe the line, to have life, to be able to experience events like this and a sport like this. And yeah, it just made me feel really grateful. It made me feel really sad. But I'm really happy and thankful that they did that just to honor him. It was really cool, especially considering then that day, Ruth breaking the women's world record by an astonishing amount as well. So, yeah, race temperatures at this point, it was about 56 degrees Fahrenheit and it was feeling fairly humid. It did not feel cool. I remember around 4 a.m., I stepped out of my house and I went outside and I came back in to tell Cyrus, I'm like, it's not going to feel cold today. I knew from that first stepping outside, I was like, it's not that crisp, cold feeling you want to feel on race morning. So that was the first sign of like, okay, that's not super ideal. Again, nothing you can do about that. That's what the day you were given. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do to change what you need to change? What are you going to do to get your best performance on this day? So definitely feeling all those thoughts. A lot of people have that. I said this in Boston. I think a lot of people feel like it's going to be fine, and it's usually not if it's warmer. So that's in the back of my mind where I'm still like, yeah, it's great weather. It's still in the 50s. But as the day went on, people were definitely experiencing that heat and humidity a bit. It wasn't crazy, but it wasn't cold. Yeah, 8 Corral's pretty crowded with a lot of people running around 240, 245 and, wanting to run under 235, closer to 230. I was definitely weaving a lot and I kept to the left side of the road, knowing that the first turn was a left-hand turn. But as we went under the first overpass, I noticed that all the people on the left side, before the bridge over the river, were all cutting to the right side. And this felt like one of those, I was happy I was a veteran in the race because I saw that there was red carpet on the left side of the bridge and nobody ran on the left side. So I was the first person in the whole field to actually jump on the left side of the bridge, which gave me everything in front of me, which was awesome. So I got to at least get to what I thought was race pace at that point. There's a pinch point on that left turn. Those first few turns were really difficult. I got stuck on the inside and then got to the mile 1 marker and manually split a 540. So that was not the best start to the race, but just tried to settle down and chill because I knew as long as I didn't drop a few 540s in the beginning, I'd be okay. It felt really easy. Obviously, you have all the adrenaline. But I hate that 1.5 mile marker just past the first mile because that's where you actually start to feel the effort. You're like, oh, this is fast and hard. And it doesn't feel great to run this fast. And knowing I have 25 more miles it's kind of daunting. And so that was also the first moment where I felt like my stomach wasn't right. And going past the Chicago Theater sign on State Street, into the second mile, I was really making sure I was running much closer to 6 flat a mile to try to make up for how fast that first one was. And my stomach was in knots. I felt really bad. I'd never felt this twisted up in my stomach this early in a marathon or really ever. It wasn't a nausea feeling. It was like, I'm too full. And so that's going back to the carb load, the pasta the night before, that maybe too much in the morning, too much in my stomach in general, could have been the juice, any of those things. So I can't pinpoint one specific thing because there's so many, inputs on what was going into my system that I think generally that's why I want to scale it back to maybe 600 grams a day. 6 to 650 might be the sweet spot and then do more solids than liquids. And just sort of dial in some of those variables, seeing if that helps and changes. But the reality of marathoning is there are a multitude of variables. So you can't tell maybe it was because it was more humid that I felt that way, or maybe it's because of this, that, the other. You never can understand. So you try to take one thing from one race, bring it to the next one, try to learn from that. It's just this ongoing experience of what marathoning is. And that's the joy of it. And it's unpredictable and that's fun and cool. And so rounded into just past mile 2 onto LaSalle. And because of how I felt, I kind of just wanted to get away from the crowds. They felt a bit overwhelming. And got to the 3 mile mark, saw Cyrus for the first time. And quickly after that found Joe, my teammate, Joe Greer. And it's funny, this poster's right behind me. So we did a documentary on Joe, for the last 2.5 years and hopefully releasing that very soon. He just got signed by BPN, so now we're teammates, and I knew that he would be running around 550 a mile the first 16 miles. His coach changed that plan for him as kind of an audible, seeing the weather change, that it trended a bit warmer again and humid. So I thought, I don't feel great. I don't want to work down to 5:45 right now because I feel like that effort is going to absolutely destroy me, because all the first thoughts in these first 3 miles were, I am going to have a horrible day. Like, this is not going to go well. I never feel bad in the first 5K of a race. I never feel like I'm not suited to run a long distance. It always feels light and effortless and fun and cool, and all those feelings at the beginning of a marathon. So to start it with that kind of dread and feeling uneasy was horrible. And so knowing I could work with someone, and someone that I knew really well, and that we could work together at the pace that I would feel comfortable at, that brought me a lot of comfort with not feeling comfortable. So I asked him how he was doing in this video, and he said he felt great. And he's like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I don't feel so good. My stomach is hurting. So I just, again, it was like that, you're here, you're in it. You have to just see what happens on the other side of effort. So continue to put out this effort and see how you feel. And thankfully, through the next 7 miles, I started to feel so much better. We worked our way up through the north side. We were running tangents through Lincoln Park. That's something very different that I did this year, something that we did differently in Boston, cutting corners and running the straightest line possible. And I feel like that was confirmed to me in my total distance time on Koros. I typically don't give that much credence when you look at your total distance based on what your watch said. But the fact that I was linked up with the watch and the Pod 2 on my foot, my total distance on the app, on the Koros app, was 26.25, I believe. So I felt like I ran tangents super, super well this time. And I was running where people weren't a lot. And Joe and I were cutting corners and like really taking the straightest line through S curves. So that was really cool and fun to experience. And again, like just part of me knowing the course as well, knowing where there were curves, where there were turns, and how to hit those tangents really well. And it felt like a total cheat code. We were passing people through the tangents, and that's how I knew it was working. And it's so mind-blowing how many people don't run tangents in a major marathon. They tend to run in the middle of the road. And if you go from, left side, if it's turning left, you hug the left side of the road, knowing if it's turning right later, you hug the left side, go through the center, and then hug the right side on that next turn. And that's the straight line. And so many people will just run in the middle of the road and run the S. And yeah, we're talking about, a couple dozen meters or, like 100 meters, but 100, 200, 300, whatever ends up being meters is the difference between 30 to 60 seconds off your time over the whole distance of a marathon. So anyway, that was the first time I had really, really thought about tangents. And it also kept my mind off of how uncomfortable I was feeling in the first half. And the other factor here was there was a bit of a headwind going north, and the wind always whips around in downtown Chicago. So you get it from every direction throughout the race if there's a bit of wind, but it was especially stronger going north. It wasn't super intense, but we didn't really have any kind of pack to work off of. Joe and I found ourselves a lot like really kind of leading groups at times, or I think we started off much further back in A Corral and behind American Development and all those things, that we were passing a lot of people over the first 7 miles up to the northernmost point where you turn around. So we, we're taking in fluids, we're running our tangents, and we get to the northernmost point. And I knew that once we got there, we'd be turning around and hitting a tailwind, and it would feel good. And sure enough, when we started working our way back south through Boys Town, it was feeling much more comfortable for me. And not that I necessarily felt a tailwind, because you typically don't. My stomach started to turn around. I started to feel better. So fueling wise, I committed to what I said I would every 3 miles through. Did my first one at 3, my second one at 6. And since my stomach wasn't feeling great, I decided to start pushing the gels back earlier instead of hitting it every 3 miles. So that was the other crazy thing about this race is I typically have a really good memory of what happens on a course, especially Chicago, because I know it so well, like who I saw at what points, where it was, what happened. And so much of this race was a blur, whether it was because there were just so many things going on in my head, the fact that I wasn't feeling well. I don't really know where I took my gels past that point. I based on knowing that I had 7 in my pockets, I had 2 left at the end of the race. So I took 5 total. I know I took the first 2 at 3 and 6. I think I went 10, 14, and then 21. And I'll get to that in a bit. But I also had my handheld with about a scoop and a half of G1M, which would be 30 grams of carbs and about 450, 500 milligrams of sodium. And oh yeah, I just realized earlier I said 700 grams of sodium. I meant milligrams earlier. Yeah, so I was nursing that for a long time, knowing that too much of that in training was actually making me feel nauseous. So I was making sure to take a lot of plain water on the course, like I said, and I learned from my last 23-mile workout. So I actually held on to that much longer than I thought I would, and I used it more as a primary source of fuel than the gels, what it ended up being. And I believe I only got 150 grams of carbs throughout the race, which is still, on paper, pretty under-fueled. If I'm trying to target that 80 grams an hour benchmark, that, should be around 240 for the whole race. But I carb loaded so hard in my mind, I was thinking, man, you have so much glycogen stored up in your body right now with how hard you carb loaded. But, again, from what I've read, and the science says that you can only store so much before you're not storing anymore. So I don't know, another variable there. I don't feel like my bonk late in the race was because I was under fueled. Could have been, but I think it was still enough. So we got through closer to half, as you come back to the city, it starts getting super electric again. And yeah, tons of people screaming. And I felt so bad. I passed my friends that believe in the run, gave them big high fives, and I sort of tripped up Joe. And I just felt so horrible. He was fine from there, didn't go down, but I was so afraid that I caused that, and really made me want to lock in more and really take it more seriously. And those are just the factors where you're allowing yourself to get too excited could be the result of, messing someone else up. And yeah, I was just kind of feeling gutted that was a potential outcome. Thankfully, it was okay. But we got to the halfway point, and typically around halfway, it just gets so loud, and you get so hyped up and you start running too fast. And I wanted to make sure we were really calculated. We were still running our pace, and we went through half in 1:16:23. My initial goal was to go through in 1:15:30. So we were almost a full minute off of that goal, but I had already resigned myself to a slower pace given how I was feeling that morning, given a bit warmer weather, and was okay with going through half at that pace, hoping that I would feel better towards the 18 to 20 mile mark and I could start to negative split and still crack 232. At that point, I'd pretty much given up on sub 230. There was virtually no chance of me negative splitting by a minute and a half or more going through 1:16:23. And doing all that math in your head, it can start becoming really exhausting as well when you're putting out such a big effort. So I wasn't thinking too much about it. I was just thinking if I can go off of feel later, and if I have more, I'll just start cranking up the tempo. And we go through 14 and 15, mile 14 and 15, took that third gel going out west and was really starting to feel it. This is typically where I feel it in this race, because you go from electric to quiet, and you're really tasked with this idea of, I have half the race left. I have half of a marathon left, and this is really starting to hurt, and this pace is too fast. And, 5:50 was no longer feeling comfortable. It was starting to feel taxing. It was starting to feel like, I don't know if I can negative split this. This is a bit too difficult. So yeah, you just have to grind through that section of the race. For me, it's always like the hardest part is 14 to 19. It's not 19 and beyond. It's a different kind of struggle beyond that, but 14 to 19 is the biggest mental game because you're tasked. It's that part where you have to constantly be thinking of run the mile you're in, like be present right now. Do not think about what's going to happen later because it's just going to be too much and too overwhelming. And then once you get to like 19, mile 20, you start to feel like, okay, I'm closer to the end. I could stick this out for, another 10K, another 6-7 miles. So yeah, that middle section was really hard because when we turned to go back east, back to the city, Joe started dropping me. And he put maybe 30, 40 feet on me. And I just was like, I can't match that. He's going to go have his own race. So I was like, go get it, Joe. Yelled at him to go do that and just kind of started locking in for myself. And we got to 17 and UIC's campus, and I was able to catch back with him. And then we were able to work together for another 1.5 miles. Again, this whole section was feeling like, I feel like trash. This is the part where you could tell I was so bogged down with just fighting my mind that I didn't take another gel. I don't think that was on purpose. I would have if I thought about it, like by mile 18, but I was really intentional about finishing the rest of the soft flask at that point. So once we got down to the end of that stretch, going to turn south into just past mile 18, I took one last big swig and squeeze of the soft flask and ditched it to my left. And we rounded the corner, headed towards Pilsen. And I felt really horrible rounding that corner until 200 meters into that straight. And then I felt really good all of a sudden. I had no more soft flask in my hand. It might have just been that feeling of like, oh, wow, I feel much more free now. Maybe less bogged down. And so it wasn't a super intentional thing, but I started to increase pace. And because I felt good, I kept looking at my watch to see what pace that was. And it was reading back that I was about 5:45 pace now. I'm like, oh, okay. So let's just keep maintaining this. We pass mile 19, turn left into Pilsen. And my friend Joey, as I said in the race video, Joey got this really awesome clip, me coming into 18th Street into Pilsen, where I intentionally took this big breath and was like, okay, it's time now. I need to lock in. I need to start pushing this. And I got insanely focused. I was just tuning everything out around me and just laser focused on the end of the street, knowing just run this straight away, keep pressing. And it was really reassuring that I was passing so many people at this point. People were starting to fade, and now I was starting to overtake people, which is always a huge psychological bonus. And this is the point where I thought, oh wow, all that doubt that I overcame the last 4 or 5 miles is now manifesting in me realizing, wow, you really trained for this and your body is capable of running faster right now. And it's all those thoughts and feelings with what Coach Jeff put me through in this block, and all of the tempo and threshold work, all of those insane Wednesday workouts where I'm running, 5-6 unbroken threshold miles into mile repeats, or 600, 800 meter repeats inside of a big volume workout. All of those thoughts and feelings come in moments like this in racing the marathon, where you're thinking, your mind might be telling you, I can't run this fast, but your training reassures you that you can maintain that. And even my hidden gem tune-up race made me feel like, no, 540 is totally possible for you, because those were your slow miles in the half marathon, and you closed in 520 or 515 even. So we got to the end of 18th Street into mile 20, where the huge 3-run-2 crowd was. And I didn't go as psycho this year as I did last year. I still gave it to them. But again, wanted to keep it a bit more chill so I didn't overwhelm myself. I always feel like I go crazy on those moments, and I kind of regret it afterwards. So I gave it to them, but didn't go super nuts, and still felt really good coming off of that. We do the hairpin turn, see Cyrus again, and this straightaway into Chinatown then is still feeling so good. I'm overtaking people. I look down at my watch. I'm starting around 540 pace now, even 539 it's reading to me. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm doing this. I'm actually negative splitting right now, and I feel incredible. And so, yeah, all of those emotions, all those thoughts did not remind me that I needed to be fueling still. And so I think that's what I finally realized just past the mile 21 marker, where I was still feeling great. I took what ended up being my final gel right there. Saw my family before the final time, and I saw them every single time on the course, which was incredible. And I turned right into Chinatown and continued to overtake people all the way down Wentworth, all the way into the left-hand turn, starting to go south into mile 22. When I crossed the mile 22 marker, I started to feel it, and I kept pushing the pace. But as I rounded the corner to go the final bout south into mile 23, I had my first big calf cramp. It was in my left calf, and I didn't really even feel any of the twinge feelings before you typically start cramping. It just full blown grabbed. And it was one of those where it grabs and you jolt your body. And every time it happens to me, it's like my body reacts with a jerk. And that's how I kind of mitigate the pain or the locking up of the muscle, is I really quickly flex my ankle and leg to release it. And, inevitably when this starts happening, you start to have to negotiate with what is possible, because this is where in an Instagram post I posted day after race is it becomes so frustrating that you're fit enough to run faster, but your body's not letting you because of these cramps. And this is really contested. In the running world, that sodium is what is causing this. But I think a lot of studies recently have shown that that's not the case. Jonah Rossner, my friend on Instagram, talks about this, and how really this is just you either not having enough volume, not enough time in the gym, just not enough robust training in maintaining the pace you are in the circumstances that you're in. And humidity and heat might have been a factor here as well. Or maybe it was a lack of nutrition or hydration. That could have been it as well. But I'm under the impression that it was because I'm not strong enough. That I entered into the final chapter of this race and my body wasn't capable enough to run this fast with that much strain. And that's a tough pill to swallow, no pun intended, but that's the reality of what it was. And so given that circumstance, I also talked about in that post that the marathon is going to ask you to fight in a way that you didn't think was what you were going to have to do. That was a bad way to phrase that. I said something along the lines of the marathon is going to ask you to fight in a way you weren't expecting. And I was not expecting to have debilitating calf cramps through the last 4 miles of this race. But that's what it was. And so, I've never experienced it to that level. I hope I don't in the future, but I'm going to do what I can to try to mitigate that, and, whatever I can control. But it started to become a game of, okay, this is the situation. I can't control it. I don't think there's anything I can do to make them stop. So what I'm going to do is change my form to try to stretch the muscle on each stride instead of contract it. And so that meant I know that if I started heel striking, it would actually stretch the calf out every time I landed instead of contracting it as hard as I normally do, which is what was causing it to lock up. So once, I would go for maybe, 100 meters of heel striking to try to let them release a bit. And then I would go back to my normal pace, and then I would feel them latch again. And then I'd go back to heel striking. And so it was just this dance of run normal, run not normal, back and forth. And it was frustrating because I know when I heel strike, when I'm fatigued, and in this circumstance, I'm not running efficiently. I'm not running as fast as I could. And it resulted in me running about 6 flat a mile. Am I mad about that? No, not at all. That's essentially what my marathon pace was in the spring, or what I was trying to run the marathon in last year, the entire race. So the fact that those were my slow miles, right around 6 to 6:05 a mile, was incredibly encouraging given the circumstances. And so, just continued to battle that. Every 30 to 50 meters, it would like almost fully lock up, and I would do that leg jolt and just keep going. And they just kept getting more and more frequent as I turned on the south side and headed back up in the last 3 miles, last 5K. And yeah, it was again just that mind over matter. Do what you can with the experience and knowledge you have in running. Try to mitigate this and run as fast as you can. So just kept battling, and it got so bad by mile 25 and a mile to go that the technique of heel striking and doing whatever I could wasn't working anymore. I just kept locking. And I knew probably within the next mile, I would have like a full lock up. So I was just waiting for that moment. And it happened at one of the worst possible times. I went up the last hill, what us Chicagoans call Mount Roosevelt. And I was like trying to hype up the crowd, trying to feel all the feelings. I knew I was off the 2:32 goal, but I was still just going to try to run as fast as I could, get the fastest time. And when I rounded the final corner into about 250 meters left, the last corner, my left calf just completely locked and I couldn't shake it. And I went to what I believe, I don't know if there's any footage or anything, but I went to what was essentially hobbling. Like I was no longer running. I was like doing that cramp hobble around the corner. And I don't know what I did to shake it. I think I might have flexed the ankle a few times, tried to loosen it up. And thankfully, within the last 200 meters, I was able to open it up and actually sprint. I tried to take out my phone to get like a final clip, and I could not access the camera. It was completely covered in sweat and water. So I put it back in and just absolutely emptied the clip in 100 meters, just full blown sprint, knowing I'd probably lock up in cramps again. And I crossed, and immediately medical looked at me, and I'd never seen this after a finish line for myself. The medical team, like everybody had daggers on me and was like about to come after me because I did not look good. Obviously. So my buddy Lanty, who had a GoPro and was on the medical team, came up and was like, I got him. And he got this awesome finish line footage where I started getting all sappy, and I was, crying like a baby. Just because all the feelings of how you feel at the end of a hard effort like that, and feeling so proud and disappointed and emotional in every way. He really helped me through that little section there, and I'm super grateful for that. So thank you so much, Lanty. And my buddy Striegel came through, and I'm trying to talk to people, but that's when I started to, and then did my typical off to the side, yak everything up. Came through, and when I rounded the corner with those calf cramps, I saw that I had, at the time was like 2:33:16, I think. And I saw the finish line. I'm like, I can still dip under 2:34. So when I did that final sprint, I figured I was pretty safe there. And my watch said 2:33:56. So I was like, okay, great, I got it. And then I looked at the tracker and the app later, and so I was 2:33:59. I'm like, whew, and just snuck under there and missed the goal by an entirely exactly 2 minutes. So bittersweet, but all the other stuff I've been posting online is that I just didn't find myself upset. I was really proud of that fight in that last little, 5 to 8K. Man, I just keep switching between kilometers and miles. That last 4 mile stretch where I was hopeful that I could negative split and get at least close to the 2:32 mark. But when, my body said no, I still gave it everything I could in fighting those cramps. And so, learning lesson and moving forward. I'm so hungry for sub 2:32, closer to 2:30, and eventually, hopefully, a sub 2:30 and beyond. Who knows? We'll see. Such a party afterwards, seeing my friends and my family. My 2 oldest were with my wife, and we got to hang out. I got to see a few of my athletes that I coach and celebrate their PRs. We had a beer, and it was just such a beautiful day. I got to hang with some more friends later, and got to see more of my family. And just so grateful for these opportunities. It's so unbelievably special to be healthy, to race this distance and these races. and it being on the home turf again and being healthy enough to run Chicago was such a privilege and a gift. So, as I said in the hype up video, not to be too dramatic again, but I'm just so thankful to my wife, Sabria, for the constant support, for my kids' support of me and doing this selfish thing, and allowing me to have this time to run and to race, to my coach, Jeff, who has trusted in me to run faster times and, giving me the work necessary to continue to progress into this low 230s sort of category. Always so grateful for his guidance and his hype, to Cyrus, who's behind the camera and editing all of these videos. None of this would be possible in this series without him and the quality and the artistry that we're able to collaborate on together. Cyrus is the GOAT. He's just the best. To my sponsors, BPN, with fueling, with Koros, and the watch and the pod and the heart rate monitor, and to Outweigh for my socks and race socks and training. None of it's possible without you and the production quality, like truly. So thank you so much. And I, to a multitude of friends, all my Life in Stride boys, and Joe for sharing all those miles together, my BPN teammates. Yeah, across the board, just so thankful for everything. So thankful for you all watching this and supporting me and allowing this to be my career. It's just unbelievable, and just so unbelievably grateful for all these opportunities. So yeah, moving forward, really excited to bring some more lightheartedness into this, less drama, and just more fun racing and getting faster, and hopefully helping you all do the same. And I think that's about it. So till the next time I throw up. See you soon.